What's up, everybody? Captain Go Burns aboard the USS Galaxy Traveler, giving you my review of Star Trek Discovery, the season 1 fall finale, or the mid-season finale, or whatever you wish to call it. And a few months ago, on the Go Burns VNR channel, which stands for Vlogs and Reviews, it's where all my vlogs and reviews for TV shows and movies resides, in case you guys were wondering. I did the review of the season premiere, well, the series premiere, actually, of Star Trek Discovery. And what we're going to do here is I'm just going to go over, I guess, a basic, my thoughts, my views, my opinions regarding the first half of season 1 of Star Trek Discovery thus far, along with my opinion, my review of the fall finale or mid-season finale, whichever works for you, of Star Trek Discovery, which aired last night on CBS All Access. And great news for Star Trek Discovery fans out there. It has already been renewed for season 2. So that's definitely a good thing for those of us that have already invested some time and money into watching Star Trek Discovery on CBS All Access. We are going to be getting a second season. And the second half of the first season of Star Trek Discovery will continue in January 2018. And yeah, I still have issue with the whole paywall issue. Obviously, I have issue with the issue of paywalls. But unfortunately, that's just a reality we live in now. I mean, there's a lot of good shows on Netflix, like Stranger Things. And if you really want to watch Stranger Things, you kind of have to have a subscription to Netflix. And this is just the way things are going now when it comes to these good quality shows. And you can either, continue to watch, I guess, free TV or network TV or whatever you call it, and, get that stuff there. And some of it's still good, but a lot of it's kind of crap now because they're trying to cater to, as large of an audience as possible. And Star Trek Discovery and Stranger Things are more like niche shows, only catering towards a select group of people, just like with Game of Thrones, Westworld. That's one of the reasons why HBO has been so successful, because of the fact that they have a show or shows that focus on, interests from particular groups of people. The same thing goes with Star Trek Discovery. Obviously, Trekkies have been wanting a new series for quite some time, because the last one was Star Trek Enterprise back in the 2000s. And it got off to a rocky start, but by the 4th season, it got really good. But unfortunately, it was too little too late, and they canceled Star Trek Enterprise 4 seasons in. And yeah, the series finale of that was always insulting. It was. I mean, Star Trek Enterprise deserved a better series finale than what they got. But that's the past. This is the present, or the future, because once again, we're in the 23rd century. How do I feel about the first half of season 1 so far? I feel okay about it. There have been some times when I was like, what? Like, what the hell's going on here? Like, why is this here? Why is that here? I mean, I'm trying not to spoil anything just yet. But let's go ahead and talk about the fall finale, or the mid-season finale last night. It was a very good, I guess you could say, climax episode. And I think almost all the characters on Star Trek Discovery that we've been getting to know over the past few episodes, I think they really shined last night, and I was very happy with it. And for the most part, there hasn't been an episode that I hated, but there have been a few episodes in the first half of the season I was like shaking my head at, like, it would have been better if this didn't happen or that didn't happen, but that's nitpicking. But I would say that the fall finale was really good. I enjoyed it. It was very entertaining. It was a pretty sweet battle between the Discovery and the Klingon flagship, the Ship of the Dead, and it was cool. But there were some cliche things that do transpire. Unfortunately, you find cliche in a lot of shows and movies these days. It's just I guess it's a go-to thing for writers in Hollywood, right? But yeah, I would say that if you're a Star Trek fan and you've been enjoying Star Trek Discovery thus far, and you have yet to watch the fall finale or the mid-season finale of Star Trek Discovery, because some of you out there don't have to, go through the CBS All Access paywall in order to watch Star Trek Discovery. Some of you in other countries can watch it on Netflix or watch it on, I think, Space in Canada, like Some of my friends up there can. But for those of us in the States, we have to have the all access to CBS. But is it worth the amount? Whether it's because there's two prices you can get. You can get the commercial free, which is I think like what, $10 a month, but for like a few bucks cheaper. You can do it with some limited commercials for Star Trek Discovery. I say that between the two, the limited commercials is the better deal because you're paying less. But yeah, okay, so you have to sit through a few commercials. I mean, if you live in the States and you're used to network television and you're used to commercials between scenes, then it's not going to really phase you as much. Plus, it's going to save you a few dollars as opposed to the no commercials. And to be honest, I mean, it only like saves you a few minutes of time anyways. From limited commercials to no commercials, so I'd rather save a few dollars a month, especially since those dollars will add up over time, especially determining how many seasons Star Trek Discovery is going to get. But will I continue watching Star Trek Discovery going into January 2018? Because that's the point of the mid-season finale or the fall finale is what happened. Was it enough to keep me interested, to keep me on this trek, if you will, regarding the Star Trek Discovery? And I say, yeah, definitely. I'm going to continue watching Star Trek Discovery when it comes back in January 2018. Hopefully, I'll still be here. Hopefully, the world had been blown up by then, right? But yeah, I mean, as a Trekkie that, goes all the way back, I mean, I'm a fan of all of it, okay? The original series, Star Trek Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, even Voyager had its moments. I did watch a little bit of the animated series. I could take it or leave it for the animated series, but at the same time, I've loved a lot of the movies, and there's been Star Trek movies I didn't like, but at the same time, I do consider myself a Trekkie and a sci-fi nerd because I'm not about Star Trek, Star Wars, or any of that nonsense. And no, I'm not comparing Star Trek Discovery to the Orville because, for one thing, I have yet to watch the Orville, so I cannot make that comparison. I'm just focusing specifically on Star Trek Discovery as where it is in the Star Trek verse. And where I would rank it right now is too early to tell. Is it ever going to be as good as Deep Space Nine? I don't know. I think that's a pretty tall bar for Star Trek Discovery. Maybe it might be up there with Star Trek Voyager, maybe better than Star Trek Enterprise, but I don't know. I mean, in my list, it's like Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Next Generation, and Star Trek Original Series, and Star Trek Voyager or Enterprise. They kind of interchange. But anyways, I think that so far the first season has been adequate. And I remember previous Star Trek seasons, like the first season of Next Gen, the first season of Deep Space Nine even, and Voyager. They were touch and go because they were still getting used to the characters. The writers had just, started slowly but surely fleshing them out, deciding which characters were going to stay, which characters were going to go. And that's usually the way it goes in a first season. But so far, the first season of Star Trek Discovery has been surprisingly decent, with a few exceptions. I mean, there's some things that happen that you kind of feel like, well, that kind of goes against Star Trek canon because this is supposed to be set in the Prime canon, not the J.J. Abrams, a.k.a. Kelvin canon. I mean, this is supposed to align with Star Trek, the original series, and The Next Generation, as well as Deep Space Nine and Voyager. And, of course, prior to Discovery, Star Trek Enterprise. It's supposed to align and all that, but there are just things that happen that make you shake your head like, whoa, I don't know if that actually was a thing in the 23rd century just yet. But then again, that's just a small gripe I have with Star Trek Discovery. But I would say that if you don't have a problem with paying, at least for limited commercials, I would definitely check out Star Trek Discovery, especially if you're willing to wait, for January, for the season to pick back up, or wait for the first season to be completely done, then go get it, because I think you get like a free week's trial of Star Trek, of CBS All Access, and this is what I mentioned and recommended in my series premiere of Star Trek Discovery, is that if you're still on the fence and you don't want to spend any money, then simply wait till the entire season's out and then, get the 1 week of free membership, and then I guess make sure you have plenty of time that week to go and binge watch all the episodes of Star Trek Discovery. And then I guess that'll determine whether or not you wish to continue supporting Star Trek Discovery, because this is an expensive ass show. It is, $8 million per episode. So, I mean, that's how much faith CBS has in this being their flagship show on CBS All Access. And that's another thing I like. I like the fact that, this is, going to be, very episodic. You're going to have an arc. It's not, like one-off episodes, like where you could like jump into an episode of Star Trek Voyager and then you could jump into another episode like a few episodes down or a few seasons later. It's not like one-offs. It's like an ongoing thing with characters continuing to be developed. We're learning more about these characters. We're starting to get to know them a little bit better, like Captain Lorca, as well as Michael. Let's see, Ash Tyler as well. Tilly, Stamets, his partner, the Doctor, and one or two others. So, and of course Saru. Some of them I like, some of them are starting to grow on me, but it's just the same thing. I mean, these are new characters. This is a new series, and it's going to take a while before we have them fleshed out a little bit more, and we learn more about these characters, the primary characters and the secondary characters aboard the USS Discovery, and hopefully we'll become as attached to them as we are the characters of the original series, or Enterprise, or Next Gen, or Deep Space Nine, or perhaps even Voyager, depending on which show you're into. I'm not judging. So yeah, I think that if you don't have to pay like the rest of us in America do, if you have Netflix already in another country, or you have space in Canada, I think most of you in Canada have space already, then yeah, and you're a sci-fi fan, you're a Star Trek fan, I would definitely recommend watching the first 9 episodes of season 1 of Star Trek Discovery. There'll be some issues, there'll be some things that come up that we're going to talk about right now as we go into the spoiler section, but overall I'm still along for the ride, more or less. Okay, so we're going into spoilers. First off, we'll talk about overall things in like the first half of the first season. For those of you that have been watching as well with me, please don't leave any spoilers in the comment section, by the way. This is just between you and me. But you can tell me in the comment section, I'd love to hear this from you guys. Are you enjoying Star Trek Discovery thus far? Or did it lose you somewhere down the way? Don't exactly tell me what, because I'll get it. Like, this episode, it really lost me, or that episode, or I'm feeling it. I feel like I'm ready to, for January to get here so I can pick up where they leave off with the mid-season fall finale. Okay, so the fall finale, let's talk about that. The prior episode, they were trying to figure out how to detect the Klingon cloaking device. And that's kind of an issue right there, because if memory serves, it wasn't for a few more decades before the Klingons actually had cloaking technology, I think. Because they didn't have it during the original series, and I think they got it from the Romulans, actually. And in Star Trek Discovery, they get it from the Klingon Ancient Ship of the Dead, because it had a cloaking thing on it, and the other Klingon ships didn't. And then Cole takes over, and he starts divvying out the cloaking technology to other houses that support him as I guess the leader of the Klingon Empire. And of course, he's taking control of the Ship of the Dead, which is the big main ship you see in the series premiere. And so the prior episode, you have Michael Burnham, and you have Ash Tyler, and you have Suru go to this planet because there's a transmitter, an alien transmitter, that might be able to help detect the cloaking device. And so that unfortunately kind of backfires, because they make first contact with this sentient species. It's kind of like a non-corporeal species. They're very peaceful, by the way. And the gist is, they want to bring peace and harmony. And unfortunately, they use the transmitter to not only, let the Federation know that they're out there, but they also let the Klingons know. And the Klingons are not exactly peaceful. They kind of go against the whole peace thing. And so the Discovery's left with a dilemma, because all the Federation ships are being called back to the Federation border. because there was a time earlier in the season where they were winning the war against the Klingons because of the Discovery, having the spore drive, which allows it to instantaneously jump from one point to the other, helping out in clutch situations. But once the Klingons were able to get more cloaks on their ships, it gave the Klingons an advantage. And with this new frequency, the Federation hopes to be able to counter that cloak. And so the Ship of the Dead, under the command of General Cole, is coming to probably destroy the planet Porva or Pova, whatever it's called. It starts with a P. And Lorca has to make a decision. He has to decide whether or not he's going to stay or fight. And he does warp away, giving his crew basically 2 or 3 hours to come up with a plan to defeat the Ship of the Dead and save that indigenous sentient non-corporeal species that are all about peace. And so they come up with a plan, and then they jump back, and because they were using warp, but jumping through the spore drive is a lot faster, but it causes a toll because Stamets, which is kind of like the scientist / engineer of the ship. I don't know if he's really the engineer though, but he's in charge of the spore drive. He's been the one that's been getting hooked up to it ever since this creature that was originally getting hooked up to it could no longer be hooked up to it, so they let it go. So it went back into the spore stream or whatever it's called. And so Stamets has been negatively affected because of the fact that he's being directly connected with the spore drive. And they have to do 133 jumps in order to, get the calculations needed in order to properly detect Klingon cloaking technology. So meanwhile, Ash and Burnham, when the Ship of the Dead uncloaks, their shields are temporarily down, which allows Ash and Burnham a chance to jump on board, teleport on board the Ship of the Dead with the ability to not be detected as human life forms. They have some sort of device that allows them to do that. It's the 23rd century. It's plausible that it would exist. So they jump on board, and then they plant the 2 devices needed to one in this one chamber where they're keeping the dead, members of T'Kuvma's cult that I guess Cole has killed, and he's even taken one of them in prisoner that was originally serving him, what was her name, Lortha? I forgot what her name was, but anyway, she was, I guess you could say she was Vox mate, or she became Vox mate, and that's another arc I think that gets kind of explained or revealed, and so some of us that were already kind of suspicious about it. So yeah, she's in here in this room along with an admiral gets captured, by the way, throughout the first half of the season, and she's, I guess you could say she's a friend or kind of a love interest of Lorca, and she's not really happy with Lorca, and because I guess he tries to seduce her. Well, he does seduce her, but she thinks it's because he doesn't want to lose his ship. That's why he slept with her. I don't know, but they didn't really show that. They just insinuated that they slept together. It was kind of weird because obviously they're about to get it on, and then the next scene they're laying in bed together, and they have their clothes on. I mean, not all their clothes, but Lorca has his boxers on or briefs on, and she has I don't know, 23rd century sex. But speaking of sex, I'll get to this in a minute. Oh God, this scene that happened in the fall finale. Anyway, so they find the admiral. The admiral's not dead because that other Klingon, the female Klingon, I don't remember her name, but yeah, she was going to try and escape with the admiral, but their escape was kind of foiled. Okay, so after being interrupted by Comcast, they're supposed to be coming and fixing my internet problems I've been having the past few days. Hopefully that will happen. Where were we? Oh yeah, so all right, admiral captured. Her death was faked. She was seriously injured though, but what happens is she gets rescued. That Klingon chick, she gets rescued as well. What's her name? The truth is, the Klingon arc, I haven't really cared as much about. I hate to say that. It's not just because they don't look like Klingons, the redesign of the Klingons in Star Trek Discovery compared to how they looked in Next Gen, as well as Deep Space Nine, Voyager. I just don't care. That arc is not very interesting to me. But they finally did the Red October thing where they went from, the Klingons, always speaking Klingon, which is, I guess, fine. But I think it's the font that's an issue. The way they set up the font is just kind of weird. So, like, Burnham, uses the Universal Translator to do the Red October thing where 1 second they're speaking Russian and the next moment they're speaking English. But they're technically still speaking Russian, just like the Klingons are still speaking Klingon. It's just that we can now understand them. That definitely helped. I definitely think that helped. And so Burnham is like challenging General Cole because she's the one who killed T'Kuvma, the Messiah, I guess, of the heir to Kahless or whatever he was in the series premiere. He got killed. A lot of people got killed in the first 2 episodes of Star Trek Discovery, including the captain of the Shinzo, which was, I guess you could say, kind of like a mother figure to Burnham. She was her first officer. And anyways, so Burnham, distracts Cole long enough for the Discovery to get all the readings it needs, and in order to beam everybody off the Ship of the Dead, Ash, as well as the Admiral, and of course the female Klingon comes along as well at the last second. And the female Klingon is the same Klingon who ended up capturing and torturing Ash for several months. And so, yeah, she's the same Klingon. She's in custody now. The Admiral's been shuttled off to a starbase, so she'll probably be back in the second half of the first season. If there's any further relationship between her and Lorca, I guess time will tell. And Burnham gets back to the ship, and the Ship of the Dead gets blown to bits, because now Lorca knows exactly where the Ship of the Dead is, even when they're cloaked, and he unleashes a barrage of torpedoes on it. Boom, Ship of the Dead blows up, killing Cole and his soldiers. General Cole's dead. The flagship of the Klingon Empire destroyed. So that's probably going to cause some ramifications for the Klingon Empire, with the war. It's probably not going to be good for them, because he was the one who I guess ultimately got all the houses under his command. Whereas, T'Kuvma was trying to, but T'Kuvma was going from another route. I guess more of uniting people together, even though it was both, for xenophobic reasons, right? One was religious, one was, I guess, militarily. So T'Kuvma's dead, General Cole's dead, Vok is missing. We still know where Vok went, and we're going to talk about that right now. So there's this ongoing theory that Vok is Ash Tyler, because of the fact that the last scene you see with Vok, it's Vok and what's her name? I keep forgetting her damn name. I don't know. I'm sorry, okay? To all Klingons out there, I apologize. But anyways, so she helps him escape from being killed by General Cole when Cole takes over the Ship of the Dead a few episodes earlier. And Cole is kind of like, I guess you could say, the heir apparent to T'Kuvma, now that T'Kuvma's gone, slain by Berman. And, she says that you'll have to go into hiding, and you'll have to make, I guess, some sort of, sacrifice. And since then, we haven't seen Vok. But then shortly afterwards is when Lorca gets captured by the same Klingon, by the way. She's become, I guess, a commander of her own ship. She's become an interrogator. So she's kind of risen up in the ranks of Cole's army. This is a few episodes back, by the way, obviously. And he gets tortured. And he also runs into Harry Mudd. Harry Mudd is obviously, someone kind of sort of known in Star Trek, the original series. And so they introduce Harry Mudd. And he makes another appearance in another episode, which was a kind of a cool time loop episode. It was kind of fun. But at the same time, he meets Harry Mudd, and he also meets Ash Tyler, which is supposedly a Starfleet officer that was captured and is being tortured by this female Klingon, the same Klingon that is now a prisoner aboard the Star Trek Discovery. And so Ash, claims that she tortured him, and it's also insinuated that they had sex in a flashback in the fall finale. I don't know if you really call it sex, though, because, I would not say it was consensual. It was not consensual for Ash. He did it because he didn't want to die. He did not want to be killed. And, because she took a liking to him for some reason. And they have this brief scene of her, I guess, going cowgirl on Ash or cow Klingon. I don't know. Whatever style. I guess the Klingons like that style too, just like we do. But yeah, there's a little bit of Klingon nudity there. I was just sitting there going like, wow. Okay, Star Trek Discovery. I mean, it didn't last very long, but still. But the theory is that he's not exactly remembering being tortured. He's remembering the process that he went through from being changed from Klingon to appearing human, from being Vok to Ash Tyler. So there's a scene whenever he goes to the brig where she's imprisoned aboard the Discovery, and she tells him she's going to protect him. So obviously she has this connection with Ash Tyler, which leads a lot of people to believe that Ash Tyler is in fact Vok. Now, what is he doing aboard the Star Trek Discovery? We don't know. But I don't know. It's kind of strange because for the past few episodes, he's been helping. He's been doing everything he can to try and fight the Klingons. In fact, he's killed several Klingons, during the war. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. So it's possible that, during the process, I'm sure it was a horrific process for him to be, I guess have plastic surgery done on him, whatever they do in Klingon, on, I guess, Kronos or one of their ships, to transform you from Klingon to human. It must have been horrific, and it must have caused some sort of memory loss. I mean, whether intentional or unintentional. And my theory is he's not remembering those member berries correctly, the Klingon member berries, whereas it wasn't like Ash and Vok and her getting it on. It was Vok and her getting it on, when he was Vok. So I guess we'll discover that more when the second half of the first season of Star Trek Discovery returns in January 2018. Another thing I did not like was a few episodes ago, and this is a small thing. Now look, I cuss all the fucking time, but for some reason, I did not care for Tilly cussing or Stamets cussing in response. Like there's like a few episodes back, they're doing something. And I think they're working on the Tellarite or whatever it was called. I forgot what the creature was called. It started with a T, I think. I should have wrote notes down, but I didn't. All this is off the top of my head. Okay, so they're doing something, her and Stamets and Burnham, and she's like, this is fucking cool. And then Stamets pauses and he's like, yeah, this is fucking cool. And I'm just sitting there going like, wow, that felt really, really forced, Star Trek Discovery. The first F-bombs in Star Trek history. I mean, we've already gotten a shit bomb, back in, what was it, Star Trek, what was it, Generations, I think? Yeah, I think it was. It was Data. Data said shit, So they've gone from an S-bomb in the 90s to 2017 F-bomb. I felt like it was unnecessary. I really did. I feel like, why? I don't know. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Kind of like the Klingon sex scene or rape scene or whatever the hell that was that we briefly got to see. What can be seen cannot be unseen. So anyways, there's some other mystery too, because this 133 jumps along with the prior jumps has kind of had a very negative effect on Stamets, and the doctor of the ship, which is also his partner, he's very concerned about him. And he basically puts his foot down and is like, look, he needs to be looked at. He needs to be seen by the best Federation scientists. And even Stamets tells Lorca after the battle, look, I have one more jump in me, back to the starbase so that our people get home safely. But that's it. One last jump. Of course, cliche. That's a cliche. And then he tells the doctor, I'm sorry, I forget the doctor's name. He tells the doctor, his partner, that he loves him. And then the doctor tells him he loves him too. And something's going to happen with all these, little bits being set up. This is my final jumper. I love you. Something's going to happen, right? So he gets into the sport thing, is the sport chamber. He gets hooked up again for one final jump. And Lorca does something. He pulls up something, in the captain's chair. He punches some numbers, and something goes wrong with the jump, and they end up jumping somewhere else. The theory is they jumped into the mirror universe. Now, the mirror universe exists in Star Trek ever since the original series, and In the Mirror Universe, it's not the Federation of Planets, it's the Terran Empire, which is a very brutal, warlike version of the United Federation of Planets. It's kind of like their own Klingon Empire, I suppose. Now, it gets reintroduced in Star Trek Deep Space Nine in the 24th century of the Terran verse, or the Mirrorverse, but the Terran Empire was defeated by an alliance of, like, I think, what was it, Romulans and Klingons? I forgot what that alliance was called. I think it was actually called the Alliance. And they ultimately defeated the Terran Empire. They enslaved humanity, and they weren't exactly nice either, by the way. So there's like this Terran uprising that's happening in the 24th century in the various Mirrorverse episodes. I'm spoiling Deep Space Nine for you, by the way. I didn't realize that. I'm just giving you little peppers, little things. So if you ever want to go back and watch Deep Space Nine, feel free to do so. But anyways, yeah, so that's where I think the second half of Star Trek Discovery is going to go. At least the first episode in January 2018. I don't know if it's just another universe entirely, because, you know, the theory is there's multiple universes out there. So it may not necessarily be the Mirrorverse where the Terran Empire exists. It could be something completely different. And that would be kind of cool, too. So anyways, for the most part, yeah, I've been enjoying the journey so far with Star Trek Discovery. Despite its bumps, despite some issues I have had. It's been cool. Some of the cliche things I could do without, but I'm just so tired of cliches in TV shows and movies. It always happens. It's just something you kind of have to deal with. Sometimes the cliches, they end up like working a little bit better because they're not as obvious. But I really did feel like the fall finale had some obvious cliches with final jump and, you know, I love you. You know, the whole thing, you know, something is about to go wrong. Exactly. So, anyways, like I said, I've been enjoying it so far. For the most part. And there really hasn't been an episode where I'm like, I don't want to watch anymore. I mean, I was upset that there was a character that Ash ends up replacing. What was her name? Landry. And she was an actress, let's see, Rekha Sharma on Battlestar Galactica. And I liked her. I mean, I was probably one of the few Tori fans out there, right? Oh, I like Tori. But I feel like she had a bad deal in Star Trek. I mean, never mind. I'm spoiling Battlestar Galactica. I'm spoiling everything. But anyways, I like the actress, and I really was kind of hoping that we were going to have, I think her name was Landry. I could be wrong about that, but I was really kind of hoping we were going to have her around as well. But unfortunately, she doesn't stick around, sadly. And the way she dies is stupid. It's just really stupid. You're like, no way. Of all this training, with knowing exactly how dangerous this creature is that you're dealing with, there's no way that she would have done something this stupid. But it happens, and she gets killed, and it's just, I guess it's an act of convenience so that they can eventually introduce Ash to the show, who ends up taking her place as chief of security aboard the Star Trek Discovery. But other than a few gripes, a few issues, so far, overall, I'm liking it, and I think it's been surprisingly strong for a first season of Star Trek, like I mentioned. Past seasons, past shows, like the first season of Next Gen. In fact, the first two seasons of Next Gen were kind of iffy, you know, kind of touch and go. There were a few decent episodes, but overall, it's surprising it made it to the third season, to be honest. The third season is when Star Trek Next Gen gets really good. And the same can be kind of said for Deep Space Nine. It took a season or two to really get rolling. But for Discovery to already be, you know, going at this speed so far, I'm very impressed. So, yeah, if you're a Star Trek fan, I think that hopefully you feel the same way I do about Star Trek Discovery, that there are some things you like, there's some things you don't like, but overall, you're going to continue the trek as well. And if you are, feel free and let me know below in the comments section.